The safety of the church pew is gone. The mob has breached the doors.
It really has.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a story that is happening, right now. This was literally yesterday.
It's still unfolding, and it's a jarring start to the week. We're digging into the events of Sunday, January 18th, 2026, just yesterday in St. Paul, Minneapolis.
And when you look at the footage, it just doesn't feel like the America we know.
Not at all.
No. We're talking about City's church. And just to be clear for everyone listening, because the details really matter here, this was not a protest on the sidewalk.
No signs in the public square.
Exactly. This wasn't someone handing out pamphlets in the parking lot. This was inside the sanctuary.
Mid-service.
Right, mid-service. A group, and witnesses are calling it a mob. Even the Department of Homeland Security used that word.
A mob, yeah.
They stormed right into the sanctuary. The footage is just wild. You've got the pastor trying to preach, and suddenly the whole center aisle is full of people chanting, "Justice for Renee Good."
And we should give the context there, because that name is the spark. Renee Good was a woman shot by an ICE agent a few days prior to this. So, tensions in Minneapolis were already at a boiling point.
A powder keg.
It was a powder keg. But the question is, why this church? Why disrupt this Sunday service?
It all came down to a rumor, right? Basically a digital ghost story.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah.
Social media just started swirling with this claim that one of the pastors, a man named David Easterwood, is actually the local field office director for ICE.
Do we know if that's true?
It's so murky. We pulled the federal records, and yes, there is an ICE director named David Easterwood. That's a fact. But is it the same guy?
The same person preaching on Sunday?
Right. There is zero independent confirmation of that. But for that crowd, the rumor was enough. They didn't need proof. They just needed a target.
And this is where it gets even stranger. Because standing right there, phone up, filming it all, is a face pretty much everyone knows.
Don Lemon.
Former CNN anchor Don Lemon. He's not at a desk. He's in the crowd.
He's filming it. And of course, he is taking absolute heat on X today. People are accusing him of trying to claw his way back to relevance, or worse.
That he actually helped incite it?
And he helped incite it by amplifying these unverified claims. It turns a house of worship into a stage for content creation.
It's just a mess. A church service halted, shouting, filming. It's political theater where worship should be. And the Department of Homeland Security, they didn't mince words, did they?
Not at all. They pointed the finger straight at Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Frey. The phrase they used was that they were whipping these mobs into a frenzy.
But this is the twist. This is the part that made me stop and reread our research. The Department of Justice is stepping in, and they're using a law that I think most people on both sides associate with something completely different.
You talk about the FACE Act.
The FACE Act. When I hear that, I immediately think of abortion clinics. Protests in the 90s. I do not think Sunday service.
Exactly. And that right there, that's the mission of our deep dive today. We have to unpack this because it signals this massive inversion in our society.
That inversion?
Yeah. We're going to explore how we went from a world where the church protected criminals from the king to a world where the king, the government, has to use, of all things, abortion clinic laws to protect worshipers from the mob.
It's the inversion of sanctuary.
That's the theme.
Okay, let's start with that tool then. The FACE Act. Break it down for us. Why is this even in play?
So FACE stands for the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. It was passed in 1994. And the original intent was, very specific.
Right.
It was to stop protesters from physically blocking or using force against people trying to enter reproductive health clinics. The government was saying, you cannot physically stop this activity.
It was designed to keep the sidewalk open, basically.
Correct. But here's the but that matters today. The text of the law also prohibits interfering with religious freedom at a place of worship. It's the forgotten clause, usually.
And now it's not so forgotten.
Not anymore. Now you have Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dhillon dusting off this law to investigate the protesters at City's church.
That is it's layers of irony. A law created by the left to protect abortion access is now being wielded by a conservative administration to shield a church from left-wing activists.
It's a huge strategic flip. But you have to think about what that implies about where we are as a society.
Yeah.
I mean, the takeaway here from a conservative lens is that civil order has broken down so badly that mutual respect just isn't cutting it anymore.
We used to have unwritten rules. You don't scream in a library, you don't run on a pool deck.
And you don't storm a church.
You just don't. It was understood.
Exactly. Those were social norms.
Yeah.
And now that they've evaporated, the state has to step in with federal charges just to secure an hour of prayer. The sanctuary isn't safe because it's holy anymore. It's only safe if the government puts a legal force field around it.
Which feels completely backwards because the idea of sanctuary is so old, it feels like something from a history book or, Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Right? Quasimodo shouting, "Sanctuary! Sanctuary!"
Yeah.
It's an iconic image. But to really get how broken today's situation is, we have to look at what that word actually meant.
Right.
Because it wasn't a movie trope. In the Middle Ages, sanctuary was a hard legal system. Very serious business.
So it wasn't just like calling time out.
Not at all, no. It was a check on the power of the state, and it was rooted in Roman law and Christian duty. And it was incredibly bureaucratic. It had rules and paperwork and real consequences.
Okay, walk me through it. I'm a medieval peasant. I've committed a crime. Maybe I stole a sheep. The sheriff's after me. What do I do?
You run. You run for the nearest church.
Yeah.
And the moment you cross that threshold, sometimes just touching the door handle is enough, you become a sanctuary man.
A sanctuary man.
Yeah.
So I'm free. I can just live there now.
No, it means you've bought yourself time. 40 days, to be exact.
40 days.
The king's men can surround the church. They can watch every door, but they cannot come in and drag you out.
Mm-hmm.
If they did, they were violating God's law, and the church would come down on them like a ton of bricks.
Okay, so I'm safe for 40 days. Then what? What happens on day 41?
Well, you can't stay forever. The church is not a hotel. You have a choice to make, and it's a brutal one.
Yeah.
Option A, you surrender and stand trial, which back then probably meant hanging.
I think I'll take option B, please.
Option B is to abjure the realm.
Abjure the realm. Sounds like a magic spell.
It's more like a legal death sentence, just without the actual dying.
Hmm.
You have to call for the coroner, and this is important, not a priest, the coroner, the king's official.
Okay.
You confess your crime to him, you say, "I am a felon," and then you swear an oath on the Gospels to leave England and never, ever return.
So I'm exiled. Permanently.
Permanently. And getting out of the country, that was the hardest part. This wasn't just signing a form. It was a public walk of shame.
Paint the picture. What did that look like?
You had to strip down, usually just to a sackcloth shirt, no shoes, barefoot. And they hand you a wooden cross to carry.
So everyone knows exactly who I am. I'm walking through town in my underwear, holding a cross.
Everyone knows. You're assigned a specific port, maybe Dover, and you have to walk there. But here's the catch. You have to stay on the main King's Highway. You cannot step off that road for any reason.
What happens if I do? If I try to hide?
The protection is gone. If you stray from the path, you can be executed on the spot by anyone who finds you. It was this terrifying barefoot march to the sea.
Wow, so the church protected you from the king's immediate justice, but only to give you a chance to confess and leave.
Exactly. And that is the key distinction. This wasn't a political protest. It wasn't about saying the king is wrong. It was about mercy. It was about saving a soul from hell by giving the sinner time to confess. A spiritual transaction.
Whereas yesterday in Minneapolis, that was not a spiritual transaction.
No, that was a political seizure of a space. The mob didn't want mercy. They wanted a platform. They wanted to use the church as a megaphone.
This brings up another point from the research, which I found fascinating. There were chartered sanctuaries that were almost like economic zones.
Right, like St. Martin-le-Grand in London. These places had special royal charters. They weren't just for murderers.
So who was hiding there?
Debtors, for one, but also, and this is wild, foreign workers.
Immigrants.
Skilled immigrants. Shoemakers, mostly. In the early 16th century, St. Martin-le-Grand was full of Dutch and French artisans. They were sanctuary men, but they were dodging the taxes and strict rules of the London guilds.
So it was basically a tax haven.
A proto-free trade zone. There were hundreds of them making the best boots in London, and because they were in sanctuary, the guilds couldn't touch them.
That's incredible. So even in what we think of as this chaotic medieval period, there was structure, there were rules.
Rules. That's the word. Sanctuary had rules. It ended in 1624, but while it lasted, it was an ordered system.
Contrast that with today. You dug into the history of riots in churches, and it seems like every time politics breaches those doors, order just dissolves.
It's a clear pattern. 5053, 1980, 2011, and now 2026. The result is always the same. Violence and the end of worship.
Let's talk about that 1553 one. That one involves a dagger.
August 13th, 1553. St. Paul's Cross in London. A preacher named Gilbert Bourne is in the pulpit. It's a volatile time. Catholic versus Protestant. And Bourne starts defending a Catholic bishop the crowd despised.
Bad move.
Terrible move. The crowd just turns on him, shouting, "Papists, tear him down!" And then whiz a dagger flies through the air and sticks right in the pulpit, inches from his head.
Wow.
But here's the amazing part. The people who saved him were radical Protestant preachers, John Rogers and John Bradford. They disagreed with Bourne on everything, but they used their own bodies to shield him and get him to safety.
Because the sanctity of the space mattered more than the argument.
Exactly. They chose order over the mob. And tragically, both Rogers and Bradford were later burned at the stake by the state. But in that moment, they respected the sanctuary.
Fast forward to our era, Bristol, 1980. This feels like a turning point in how authorities handle these situations.
The St. Paul's riot in Bristol, April 1980. It started with a police raid on a known drug den. Standard police work.
But it just blew up.
Total chaos. 130 arrests, 25 people hospitalized, 19 of them police officers. But the shocking part is what the police did in response.
They didn't hold the line.
They retreated. They pulled out completely. The Home Secretary later admitted they had to cede control of the streets to the rioters for hours.
That feels so familiar. That fear that if you just scream loud enough, the law will back down.
And we saw it again with Occupy London in 2011, the tents outside St. Paul's Cathedral.
Vaguely, yeah. They couldn't get to the stock exchange, right?
So they camped at the church instead.
Yeah.
And it forced St. Paul's to close its doors. For the first time since World War II, the church stopped being a church because of a mob outside.
And the leadership there crumbled, too.
The canon, Giles Fraser, he resigned. He was paralyzed. He couldn't bring himself to support removing the protesters, so he quit. He chose the feelings of the mob over the function of the church.
So there's the pattern. The dagger in 1553, the tents in 2011, the chanting in Minneapolis in 2026. When the mob comes in, worship stops. The sanctuary dies.
That's the conservative synthesis right there. The church is supposed to be set apart. When you turn it into a stage for political theater, whether you're throwing a dagger or filming with Don Lemon, you destroy its only true function.
It makes you desperate for a story of someone who actually protects the church. Not uses it, but serves it. And you found one. It's movie material.
We have to talk about Lieutenant Robert Davies. He's the antidote to all of this.
Take us to 1940.
September 1940. The Blitz. The Nazis are bombing London every night. A massive bomb falls right next to St. Paul's Cathedral.
And it's a dud.
It doesn't go off immediately. It buries itself 27 feet deep in the clay.
Yep.
A ticking time bomb. If it goes, the cathedral is leveled.
So Davies is called in.
He's with the Royal Engineers. He and his team spend 3 days digging. Imagine that. Digging in the mud, knowing that at any second you could be vaporized.
3 days of that pressure. No cameras, no chanting, just duty.
And when they finally get it out, this is the moment of real heroism. Davies sends his men away to safety. He puts the bomb on a truck, and he drives it himself.
Alone?
Alone. Through the deserted streets of London, all the way out to Hackney Marshes, where he could detonate it safely.
Just him, the truck, and a bomb that could kill him at any instant.
He risked his life to preserve the structure. He didn't use the church for attention. He acted in silence to save it. He was awarded the George Cross for cool courage.
That is just... It really puts the Minneapolis footage in perspective. You have the mob screaming for attention, and then you have Davies driving that truck in total silence, protecting the peace.
It's the complete inversion. In the Middle Ages, the church was strong enough to hold back the king. Now it's just seen as another soft target for political rage.
And when the government has to step in with the FACE Act to save it, it tells us we've lost that internal Davies spirit. We've lost the self-restraint.
We have.
Yeah.
When you look at Robert Davies driving that truck, you see respect for civilization. When you look at the footage from City's Church, you see the erosion of it.
So let's bring it all home. What's the takeaway for you listening to this? We've covered a lot of ground, from barefoot exiles to bomb disposal.
The takeaway is we have to decide what sanctuary really means to us now. Is it a place for political stunts? Is it a backdrop for your live stream? Or is it a place that is supposed to be off limits to the chaos of the world?
Because if we lose the ability to respect the sanctuary...
If we lose that, we lose one of the last places we have for real peace. If the church just becomes another stage for the 24-hour news cycle, there's nowhere left to hide from the noise. We're all just living in one big, loud room.
That is a heavy thought to end on. From Abjure the Realm to the FACE Act. But the core issue is the same. It's order versus chaos.
And right now, chaos is banging on the door.
Well, that's our deep dive for today. A bit of a different tone, but an important one. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Are we watching the end of Sanctuary as we know it?
Stay safe out there.
Yeah.
And maybe find a quiet place to sit for a while.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one.